The marble floors of Alverson Tower gleamed so perfectly that one could almost see their own soul reflected in them. The building was a monument to wealth and power, where every suit-wearing executive walked with self-importance, and every janitor moved like a ghost, unseen but essential. Ethan Price was one of those ghosts. His uniform was always neat, his hair tucked under a faded cap, and his hands, though roughened by bleach and mop handles, moved with quiet grace. He'd worked in that building for nearly 5 years, and not once had anyone really looked at him. They greeted him sometimes with half smiles, but mostly he was background noise, just the man who made sure the marble kept shining. What no one knew was that Ethan had once dreamed of being an engineer. He had even taken night classes, built small machines with scrap metal in his apartment, and submitted a job application to Alverson's technical division. But the rejection letter came quickly. No degree, no chance. So he took the only job he could find inside that same building, a janitor's position. And every night when he walked home to his small apartment, he told himself it was just for now, that someday he'd find a way to build a better future for his son. That morning started like any other. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside the tower, all was quiet efficiency. Ethan was mopping the main lobby when the revolving glass doors slid open, and a young woman stepped in. She wore a soft lavender dress, carried a slim folder, and moved with an unusual kind of grace, calm, precise, almost fragile. Yet something about her seemed uncertain, like she was trying to find her way through a fog. She approached the receptionist's desk and began to speak, or at least, tried to. Her lips moved soundlessly, her hands trembling slightly as she pointed to a note in her folder. The receptionist, clearly in a hurry, frowned. "I'm sorry, what are you saying, miss?" she asked, her voice raised slightly. When the woman didn't reply, the receptionist repeated herself louder, as if volume could fix the problem. Ethan, from across the lobby, had stopped mopping. He could see it clearly now. The woman wasn't ignoring her. She couldn't hear her. She was deaf. He felt something pull at him, something deep and familiar. His son, Oliver, was deaf too. Ethan had spent the past 8 years learning to communicate through signs, gestures, expressions, and patience. It wasn't easy, but it had taught him that silence wasn't emptiness, it was its own language. So when he saw the woman struggling, tears starting to form as the receptionist grew impatient, he didn't think. He simply acted. He set his mop aside and approached gently, his steps quiet. He tapped the woman's shoulder, making sure not to startle her. She turned, startled but relieved to see someone else's face soften in understanding. Ethan took out his small cleaning notebook from his pocket, scribbling quickly, "Hi, I'm Ethan. I work here. Can I help?" The woman's expression changed instantly. Her eyes brightened, and she nodded, smiling shyly before writing back, "Thank you. I'm Clara. I'm here to meet Mr. Alverson. But the receptionist doesn't understand me." Ethan smiled faintly and nodded. He turned to the receptionist, who now looked a bit embarrassed. "She's deaf," he explained quietly. "She can't hear you, so she needs you to write things down." The receptionist blinked, muttered something apologetic, and quickly scribbled on a notepad. Clara read it, nodded politely, and mouthed a thank you before turning back to Ethan. She gestured with her hands, a few simple signs, "Thank you, help, friend." Ethan signed back the best he could. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise. "You know sign language?" she asked with her hands. Ethan nodded. "My son is deaf," he signed back slowly, his movements clumsy but understandable. Clara's smile widened warmly, and she touched her hand to her heart, a silent gesture of gratitude that somehow said more than words could. For the next several minutes, Ethan stayed with her. He helped her navigate to the elevator, made sure she understood where to go, and even waited by the door as she entered. She kept looking back at him, that same smile lingering as if she couldn't believe a janitor had cared enough to notice. He waved goodbye just as the elevator doors closed, then returned to his mop, pretending like nothing had happened. But as he wiped the floor, he couldn't help but think about her, how small her world must feel sometimes, how easily people dismissed her silence. He thought of Oliver, and a pang of sadness tightened in his chest. He had promised his son that one day, People would see him for who he was, not for what he couldn't hear. What Ethan didn't know was that his small act of kindness had not gone unnoticed. On the top floor of the tower, Alexander Alverson, the billionaire CEO whose name crowned the building, had been standing by the glass balcony that overlooked the lobby. He had come out of a long board meeting, coffee in hand, when his eyes caught sight of the exchange below. He saw the janitor putting down his mop, saw how he gently approached the visitor when no one else did, saw how their communication shifted from confusion to comfort in mere seconds. Alexander watched quietly, intrigued. In a world where people were always trying to impress him, this man wasn't even aware anyone was watching. There was something deeply human about the way he helped her. No hesitation, no pride, just quiet compassion. Alexander stayed there for several minutes, watching them. He didn't even realize he was smiling. By the time Clara disappeared into the elevator and Ethan returned to his work, the CEO had made up his mind. "Get me everything you can on that janitor," he told his assistant later that afternoon. Over the next few days, Ethan noticed that Clara came back more often. She said her proposal meeting had gone well. The company was considering funding her project to design a community tech center for people with hearing disabilities. Each time she came, she waved at him, her smile lighting up the dull gray lobby. They'd exchange small notes or signs, short conversations about her project and his son. One day, she brought him a small badge that said, "Kindness speaks louder." Ethan pinned it inside his locker. He didn't realize that someone else was following these interactions closely, the CEO himself. Alexander had reviewed Ethan's file, discovered his spotless record, and even found an old application from years ago where Ethan had applied to the engineering team. It was rejected for lack of formal qualification. Alexander had circled that line in red ink, shaking his head. A week later, as Ethan was scrubbing the marble near the executive floor, a sharp voice called his name. "Mr. Price." Ethan turned to see a man in a tailored suit, Marcus, the CEO's assistant. "The CEO would like to see you," Marcus said with his usual air of superiority. Ethan blinked in confusion. "Me? Why?" Marcus only gave a tight smile. "Mr. Alverson doesn't explain himself." Ethan followed nervously into the golden elevator that led to the top floor, his palms sweating. He tried to think of every possible reason for being called up. Had he made a mistake? Was there a complaint? But when the doors opened, he stepped into a room that felt like another universe. The CEO's office was enormous, lined with glass and sunlight. And there, by the window, stood Alexander Alverson himself. "Ethan Price," the CEO said, turning with a faint smile. "Please, have a seat." Ethan remained standing, clutching his cap nervously. "Sir, if I've done something wrong." Alexander interrupted, shaking his head. "You did something remarkable." Ethan frowned, unsure. Alexander walked closer. "I saw what you did last week. You helped a deaf visitor when everyone else ignored her. You didn't know I was watching, and that's what made it real. Tell me, Mr. Price, how did you learn sign language?" Ethan hesitated, then answered quietly, "My son is deaf, sir. I learned it for him." Alexander nodded slowly, his gaze softening. "Tell me about him." So Ethan did. He spoke about Oliver's bright eyes, his fascination with planes, how he used to sit on the balcony and sign stories about flying. He told the CEO about the struggles, how schools turned them away, how people pitied them, how he worked nights so his son could go to therapy. "He's the reason I'm here," Ethan said. "Every time I mop these floors, I tell myself it's for him." Alexander was silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "My sister was deaf. She passed away when we were young. I built this company chasing success, but I never stopped to think about people like her, or your son." His voice cracked slightly. "You reminded me what I forgot." Ethan didn't know what to say. The billionaire turned to his desk and picked up a folder. "I looked through your records. You applied for an engineering position once." Ethan nodded shyly. "I didn't have a degree. I wasn't qualified." Alexander smiled faintly. "You may not have a degree, but you have the heart and instinct of an engineer. You've solved maintenance issues my trained technicians couldn't." I want to offer you an apprenticeship in our facilities engineering department. Full salary, training, and benefits for your son. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed again. His hands shook. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Alexander said kindly. We need more people like you, people who build bridges, not walls. Tears blurred Ethan's vision as he nodded. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Alexander said. Weeks passed, and Ethan began his new position. It wasn't easy, there was much to learn, but he tackled it with quiet determination. Clara visited often, now working as a consultant for the company's new inclusive tech initiative. Together, they helped design a project that would provide tools and software for people with hearing impairments. Alexander often joined their meetings, asking questions, learning signs, changing policies. One afternoon, when the company launched the Alverson Inclusion Center, Ethan stood beside his son and watched as children with hearing aids and bright smiles filled the hall. Clara waved at him from across the room, and Alexander approached, clapping him on the shoulder. You started this, the CEO said softly. Ethan looked around at the laughter, the hands signing in joy, the lives being touched. No, he said quietly, smiling. We all did, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt seen, not as a janitor, but as a man who had changed something in the world, simply by choosing kindness when no one else would.